Let's talk about the Chargers. This is where we are at this hour, just hours before the draft. You may hate Dean Spanos. Just sign the memo here. We all like Justin Herbert. You have heard me on this podcast say, I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0. That's why I'm wearing this. I hope Dean Spanos goes 0-17 for what he did to the city of San Diego and the loyalty of Charger fans. That being said, this is a great day because the Chargers are sitting the aftermath of a crap 5-12 season. They're sitting there with the 5th pick in the draft, and they got trade offers for that draft pick. And if they don't trade the pick, they got an opportunity to do a lot of things. All right, let's talk about where they are. Trade offers. This is the rumor that's out there that there could be a 3-way deal involving the Chargers, the Cardinals, and the Minnesota Vikings. Follow me if you can. Arizona would trade the 4th pick to the Chargers. Arizona would wind up drafting 5. The Bolts would go to 4. Chargers would also get a 4th-round pick as part of this transaction. So the Chargers, if this happens, would be sitting there with the 4th pick. Chargers would take the 4th pick. They would then send it to Minnesota for the 11th, the 23rd, and a 3rd-round pick. So the Chargers would get 11 and 23. They'd get a 3 and a 4 in future drafts. The way this would work is the Vikings would get access to probably J.J. McCarthy if they got to the 4 pick that the Chargers had just obtained. Arizona would be dropping down to 5. They'd get the receiver, Marvin Harrison. The Chargers then going 11 and 23 would get a chance to get one of the top wide receivers or one of the top offensive tackles. Plus, they would have picked up a 3rd and 4th round pick on top of it. So they get 2 1s, a 3, and a 4 as part of the deal. That's one rumor out there. Arizona's talking to supposedly 4 different clubs at this hour. We think if the trade's going to be made, it's going to be made in the 5 o'clock hour as these picks are coming up. So, John, I'm going to go proposal by proposal. You're going to give me a reaction. So you got Chargers, Cardinals, Vikings. Do you like the structure of the deal where Arizona drops, Bolts go up, Bolts trade back to Minnesota. Minnesota winds up with 4th pick, Arizona 5, Chargers 11 and 23. Makes sense, or is it too far back to go?
No, I love that because, when everyone wants the quarterbacks, there's huge demand for that number 4 and number 5 pick. So play the market, max out. You can get as many assets as you can.
Okay, second trade proposal. This is just kind of filtered out in about the last 48 hours. The Giants are trying to trade up to get a quarterback. And the report is the Giants are willing to deal number 6 and a 4th-round pick to get to number 5 if the right quarterback, we think it's J.J. McCarthy, is still on the board. So the Chargers would only drop from 4 down to 6. They could still get marquee player. They'd pick up a pick later on the weekend. Like, dislike.
Well, for the Chargers, it makes sense, but didn't the Giants just sign Daniel Jones to a long contract?
And Daniel Jones has gotten the daylights beaten out of him, and he's had neck injuries and calf injuries and Achilles injuries, and they just don't have a good team around him, and they're on the hook for a phenomenal amount of money. But there is just an underlying theory that they don't think he's an established NFL quarterback because he keeps getting hurt and he keeps getting sacked because they got a bad team around him. So I don't know that I really like giant leadership, giant decision maker. So it's been tough on him.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Okay, next one, and this one I find hard to believe, but it's being reported in both Las Vegas and in Denver that the Broncos have approached the Chargers. Now, the Broncos are talking to a ton of people. The Broncos have approached the Chargers, offering their 12th pick and next year's number 1, 12 this year, a first-round pick next year, to jump into the Chargers slot at number 5. Chargers, I was told, rejected it. Chargers came back with a counteroffer. Denver, you give us that 12, and you give us your former Pro Bowl cornerback Patrick Surtain, and we'll give you 5. If that's the deal, would you rather have 1 this year, 1 next year, or would you rather have 1 this year, you'd be dropping down, plus Surtain? If you're the Chargers, what would you do?
I would take 1 this year and Surtain on that deal because the Chargers defense was always getting torched last year. They need help.
Now, Surtain's on the final year of his contract because then you got impending free agency, or you're going to pay him $20 million a year because that seems to be the going rate for cornerbacks. Does that come into the equation or not?
Well, it probably does. I'm sure the draft gurus, the salary cap gurus are figuring that out.
Raiders. It's been reported 2 days in a row. The Raiders have evidently offered the 13 this year and next year's number 1 for the number 5 if the right quarterback is available. That's much like the Denver situation. Do you want a 1 this year or 1 next year? You give up a 5? Or is that too far down to drop to go from 5 down to 13?
Well, now you're proposing trades interdivision. I thought you didn't want to trade with the enemy.
Well, that was the next point is, do you want to dare deal with the damn enemy and make them better? Or if the price is so good that you're getting 2 number 1s, yeah, I'll take the 2 number 1s from the enemy because he's not going to be able to get better.
Well, I'll say this, just as an NFL fan and a former Raider fan back in the day, I want the Raiders to be relevant again. So if the Raiders get a QB, I'm excited about that. But as far as the Chargers go, just build assets, stack up the body count.
Okay. If the Bolts stay at number 5, as all the big names have been compressed, I think they either take Joe Alt, the big tackle Notre Dame, or if they stay at 5, and if there's a run on quarterbacks, take Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
Those guys are far and above better than the next group of tackles or the other wide receivers that are on the board. Now, if they trade down and say they drop to 6, or say they drop and take the Denver pick or even the Raider pick, they get access to Brock Bowers, the tight end, Onu Fashanu, the offensive tackle, Penn State, Rome Oduzier, wide receiver, Washington, Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, Texas, and they do need a defensive tackle. That's if they trade down. If they keep their 2nd and 3rd round picks, I'm led to believe defensive tackle Chris Jenkins, running back Blake Corum in the 2nd and 3rd round, maybe in the 4th round, Mike Sinistri, the cornerback. Michigan men, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, if they stand pat and they don't move those other picks once they get beyond round 1. So you trade. What do you do if you stay at 5?
Oh, I would never use a 5 for a wide receiver. That's too darn high. If I'm 5, I'll go for one of those anchor offensive linemen. That's what I would do. But most likely, I would trade out of 5. That's, I think, in the Chargers' best interest.
You're just bleeping greedy. You just
yes. This is when you get leverage in these deals, and you can make these trades work for you. This could change the franchise's trajectory.
Okay, it's NFL Draft Day. We have fans forum. The chat box is open. You're a football fan, jump in line now. Get into the chat box so you can tell us what you would do if you were the general manager of these guys. And I don't care whether you like or dislike the club, whether you hate the owner, love the quarterback, if you've given up on the thing. Fans Forum is open right now for Charger fan, Bronco fan, Raider Nation out of jail on bail. You're allowed to join us in the chat box right now, Fans Forum. So get in line so we can get to your questions at the end of the podcast. That's topic 1 on the table. John, you take over next topic.
Okay, more trade rumors. This is what's going on all across the league.
Okay, what we're hearing, there have been a volume of offers made to the number 2 pick owned by Washington, the number 3 pick owned by New England, the number 4 pick owned by Arizona, and then the New York Jets, who are sitting back there at number 10, trying to get up, but also possibly moving back. I was told Washington has rejected the Raiders' offer. The Raiders' offer from Tom Telesco, the decision-maker general manager, who suddenly flipped and said, yeah, we'll be aggressive. That's far from his conservative nature in San Diego and with the Bolts in L.A. Raiders evidently offered this year's 1, this year's 2, next year's 1, if they could get access to Jaden Daniels. Washington, I was told, rejected 2 1s and a 2, and they're going to keep the pick, and evidently they're going to take Jaden Daniels, even though Daniels has been dropping hints. I don't want to play for those guys. So that's one rumor. New England at 3, desperately need a quarterback. The owner has said, we desperately need a quarterback. Go get me a quarterback at number 3. They're talking to the Giants about dropping back from 3 just back to 6. Now, that's weird because the Giants like Drake May. New England likes Drake May. Why would you trade out, go from 3 to 6, even if you pick up additional assets, when you desperately need a quarterback? At 6, you're not going to get a quarterback. So that rumor is out there. Then you got Arizona. They need help everywhere, especially a wide receiver to work with Kyler Murray. They're torn about Marvin Harrison, do everything star Ohio State. They're torn about Malik Neighbors because you can't teach 4.23 speed, the kid from LSU. But it was also torn by that's one player. If we stay at 4, we take one player. If we drop back, take this whole package via Minnesota or through the Chargers, we might wind up with 11 and 23, and you could go get 2 quality players. So Arizona's out there trying to figure out who they should be. And then there's the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. And I got to believe that this quarterback, although he's played, 4 plays before he ruptured his Achilles, right. I think this quarterback's got input as to what's going on with Robert Saleh, the coach, and with the general manager. Report is the Jets are trying to trade up from number 10 to get as high as number 5, a.k.a. either Marvin Harrison or Neighbors from LSU, to go get Aaron Rodgers, a wide receiver. There's also talk, though, maybe they trade back. And maybe they trade back and they just take Brock Bowers, the star tight end from Georgia. There's another wild rumor out there. The Jets are calling the Broncos just behind them and the Raiders just behind the Broncos and say, would you like number 10? We'll give you access to get Michael Penix. That rumor is out there. But the burning question, how far back do the Jets want to go? And can the Jets extract a pound of flesh from the Broncos and the Raiders to let those guys fight as to who's going to take Michael Penix by moving up? So those are the 4 teams that are involved in all this trade talk. My gut feel, I got so many bloody emails in here, I can't get through them. There's so much stuff from these guys that I network with. Washington keeps the pick. I think Washington takes the LSU quarterback. I can't see New England trading back. If Drake May's a stud, then Drake May should be their pick. Arizona's got a lot of problems, but boy, Marvin Harrison, that's stud wide receiver, and they don't have stud wide receivers for Kyler Murray to throw to. And the Jets are the wild card because they could go up, they could go down, they could impact a bunch of other teams. And John Riley says,
well, I say the Jets and the Broncos have history of trading, right? They just made that recent deal. I agree with the Commanders. That deal from the Raiders is not enough. I mean, they've got to really hold out for just a monster package, or otherwise just do the safe thing and take a franchise quarterback like Jaden Daniels. That's what the Commanders should do. Arizona needs to definitely trade back and just get more players. I mean, because they're a disaster, that franchise.
Starting with the owner, Michael Bidwell.
Yeah, exactly. So one player is not going to do it. And certainly you don't want to put all your eggs in the basket of a wide receiver. I mean, that to me, it makes no sense at all, especially with Kyler Murray being injured so much. So I don't know if New England, unless they get overwhelmed, take one of the quarterbacks. That makes sense. Arizona needs to trade back. Chargers should trade back.
Okay, so those are the trade rumors at this hour. If you're an NFL football fan, jump into Fans Forum. Which of those proposed deals that we have discussed do you think makes the most sense? John, let's go to the third topic on the table on NFL Draft Day.
The LA Rams are finally loaded with number 1 picks this year.
Yeah, they went through a whole series of years where they did not have a number 1 because they built a Super Bowl team and they traded future number 1s, the Jalen Ramsey deals of the world, etc. But they got 11 picks, and now, granted, none of them are in the upper echelon. They're not inside the top 10. But everything I gather is they're going to choose defense. And there are a load of edge pass rushers, defensive ends, and building block defensive tackles. I think as they sit there, I think they're going to take Jared Verse of Florida State or Latu, the UCLA pass rusher, who's exceptional. They just brought in Chop Robinson, the wide pass rusher from Penn State. And they look closely at Byron Murphy for a massive defensive tackle. And, of course, they have to replace the retiring Aaron Donald. So the Rams are in just great shape. And the Rams, it's the other interesting aspect. The Rams are really backloaded. And we're going to show you a chart in a minute with that. But the Rams are backloaded where they could stockpile third-round picks and fourth-round picks because they got multiples, and then jump into the second round and get another second-rounder. You're not going to trade third and fourths and get another number 1. So keep an eye on the Rams. They do things really differently. I don't think Les Snead, the general manager, is wearing a T-shirt today. It says "F those draft picks" because he's got 11 draft picks.
Yeah.
Now they may be active once they get beyond the first round because they got so much they could use to put into a bowl and say, John, here it is. Give me a second-round pick for here it is. Go ahead. Your response on the Rams.
Wasn't just a few years back, we thought Sean McVay was going to be done in LA, and he decided to stick around, and his team, the cupboard was bare. maybe he saw the future. Maybe he probably saw these draft picks coming, in the next few years, and that he could rebuild this thing.
And the other thing is they rebuilt their offensive line last year. I mean, they've got all young people, and they pretty much stayed on the field, and they kept Matthew Stafford upright. So they've gone through transition. So I think they're halfway up the hill in rallying this thing back. Now, losing Aaron Donald is a bit of a blow, but he decided after an illustrious career to walk away, and I think they had a sentiment that he was going to retire. They got all these assets to go get more good young players, and they drafted really well a year ago. If you're a Rams fan, join us. Fans Forum. I'm not begging. I'm just telling you, you got a comment to make. We want everybody watching us. Look at the number of people on our live stream already. My goodness,
Yeah.
We've busted 200 at this minute. Join us on the Fans Forum. If you're a Rams fan, give us an opinion. Okay, let's take an overview of the entire draft, John. Next question.
Okay, here we go. This breaks down all the picks. Look at those numbers for those teams.
Okay, the Bears are drafting 1 and 9. Of course, they got the number 1 from Carolina last year when Carolina took the quarterback Bryce Young from Alabama. So the Bears are drafting 1 and 9, and the Bears made the trade. They get the Chargers' great veteran wide receiver. The Bears last year got DJ Moore. They're going to get Caleb Williams. My goodness, they're 3 deep at running back. Suddenly, they got a lot of people around that kid quarterback. Minnesota is at 11 and 23, and they desperately need a quarterback. The aftermath of what happened with Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons as a free agent and a money grab. Arizona's got a ton of draft picks. They have 6 of the top 90 picks in the NFL draft. So they're going to be active, and maybe they use some of those extra picks to trade up. Washington, as bad as they've been, they got 6 of the top 100. Now, specifics, the Chargers, 5, 37, and 69. Those are pretty good selections. Of course, according to John, he's going to trade everything and back in the load. Raiders are at 13, 44, and 47. I just don't think there's any way the Raiders can trade up. And the Rams, with the 11 picks, the Rams have 4 of the top 99 picks in the draft. So which of all that impresses you the most?
Wow. I mean, it's a lot in there, but I'd say it's got to be that Rams, all the picks that are on that list. But, when there's 32 teams in the league, you kind of can do the math, and you can see how some of these guys have proportionately much more to pick from than a lot of other teams.
Well, it's the year of the quarterback in the draft. It's a year of the wide receiver in the draft. I cannot remember in recent times how many offensive tackles, guards were going to be in the first round. So once you get beyond those 3 layers, there's still a lot of really good players. The back 15 of the first round, whole bunch of players you'll say can play in the second round. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement. I mean, there's a rumor out there as of this morning that 8 of the top 15 picks could be traded. Now, that's if somebody goes crazy. And historically, John, if somebody does something strange at the top of the first round, it's like a domino. They all start to fall, and then suddenly everybody jumps in and starts to do something because of what happened above them. So this 5 o'clock tonight is going to be fascinating in the first round, the only round of the draft. Hey, we get to have